What's up? Welcome into another episode of Pod Like a Champion, the blueandgold.com recruiting podcast. Welcome all of you guys who are watching us live on YouTube. And Mike, I know we discussed it a lot on our last episode, but worth mentioning and probably the outcome that we didn't spend as much time on, honestly. Notre Dame wrapped up its signing day and its 2021 class last week with the addition of three-star running back Logan Diggs. A wild ride of a recruitment, as you've told us plenty of times, but it's official. Logan Diggs has signed with Notre Dame. What's your reaction now that it's all over?
It's funny. We did talk a lot about what if he, doesn't end up with Notre Dame? Because that was more fascinating to me because it's like, all right, what does the running back room look like now? But when you do add Logan Diggs, um, I mean, you tell me, Patrick, when's the last time Notre Dame's running back room was this stocked? I mean, it's a very deep room. I mean, all five scholarship guys, even six if you want to throw in Kendall Abdul-Rahman. That's a really good and deep group. I mean, I think you're really excited if you're a Notre Dame fan right now.
Absolutely. And I mean, just it's not every year that you have the three top guys who I don't know what I don't know what you call them, ball carriers, I guess, who came back from the year before, especially when one of those is a guy who ran for 1,000 yards. Another is probably the fastest guy on the team. And then add in two pretty well-regarded freshmen, including Audric Estime, the New Jersey Player of the Year. So yes, the backfield's been in as good a shape as it has been in a long time here. As for how it compares to, say, other ones of the Brian Kelly era or further on, that's a question for our colleague, the venerable Loose Emoji. But I mean, just in my recent memory here, I mean, just looking at the last two off seasons where the questions were, who's going to be that guy? None of that this year. I think it's pretty clear. And if there's anything that's not clear, it's, what's the outlook for either of those two freshmen? And, how are you going to get at least Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree and even work Sebo Flemister onto the field where, you have three guys who you probably want to feature at some point. But that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, there's only one football, and you got five guys who you seriously could be giving the ball to. Yeah, it's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a situation where, yes, the outlook for Diggs and estimate in 2021, probably not a thing where you're looking at getting a lot of carries or probably redshirting just because of what's coming back. As we talked about last week for Notre Dame to say survive a loss of Logan Diggs had that happened. But now, yeah, you're looking kind of 2022 and forward and still feeling pretty good about what Notre Dame has in its backfield. So we're going to dive into some other topics and the biggest news of the week since signing day happened. But first, want to make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel. And for those of you listening on our podcast format, subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you'd be so kind, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit that thumbs up button, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating, leave us a review. You can follow us on Twitter. Follow me at Patrick Engel _, and you can follow Mike at Rivals _ Singer. As always, the best way to support this podcast is to subscribe to blueandgold.com. Hit that promo code Irish60, that's Irish60, to get you 2 free months of access to blueandgold.com. And may as well mention it here. Our recruiting issue of our monthly magazine, Blue and Gold Illustrated, went to press today. You can order that now. Highly recommend it. 82 pages, I believe. Stocked with recruiting information on the 2021 class, 84 pages. That's what Mike says. Don't want to miss that one. A lot of original stuff you only find in the magazine there. Go to bluegoldonline.com to find that. All kinds of good stuff on that 2021 class. So, Mike, let's touch on the biggest news since we last talked. It doesn't involve Logan Diggs or 2021, and that's the commitment of three-star defensive end Aiden Gobyra out of Chantilly, Virginia, as he put it to me. That's very much in the DMV area. But Mike, I'll let you kind of lay this out here. But just the basic facts. Going to play the Viper position. Notre Dame offered him on May 5th, 2020, and we just may as well get out of the way now. Yes, that's one Will Shipley committed to Clemson, but I digress. Uh, Mike Elston kind of got that work going there, but Marcus Freeman got involved as in the last month here since he got hired. But Mike, kind of take us through this one and what got Aiden Gobyra to land at Notre Dame.
Yeah, so you mentioned the May 5th offer date, and one thing for you guys with us live, we'll get to your questions later here. So if you guys want to hold those, and we'll let you guys know when we're going to get into some Q&A. Unless you're going to drop us a super chat, we'll address the super chats quickly. We just got one come in, and we'll get to that. But he's a guy that Notre Dame's Mike Elston targeted early in the process, and I really worked on him pretty hard. In the fall, Aiden, I believe it was in September, Gobyra went to Penn State on a self-guided tour and had a good experience there. You saw future casts go in for him to land with the Nittany Lions. He stayed patient, stayed in contact with the Fighting Irish staff. And then I think the flip was when Marcus Freeman came in, and then Elston and Freeman really put kind of that full court press on Gobyra, and he took that self-guided tour visit to Notre Dame the day before National Signing Day 2.0, and I think at that point Notre Dame was like, all right, like, you've been here, we've been recruiting you for almost a year, like, what's it going to be, pretty much, more or less. So at that point, Gobyra was like, I want Notre Dame, and it worked out. So the film we have for our YouTube audience that you're watching here, this is sophomore film. So you can watch a video interview that I had with Gobyra, or you can read the story at blueandgold.com, where we popped on the sophomore tape here, and I was like Aiden, like, break down your film. He's like, dude, I was planned at 195 pounds soaking wet. And, now he's up to 230, gained probably, it grew an inch or two. So this is fall of 2019 tape. It's February 2021 now, so you're looking at a completely different football player. And I think you like, what you see from his sophomore tape as well. So like I mentioned, you could check out the video interview that we had with Gobyra at blueandgold.com. So he came right after his visit to Notre Dame. He came to our South Bend Blue and Gold office, just a mile and a half from campus. So you got to sit down, with him, or obviously I did doing the interview, but you got to talk to his mom, his high school coach who accompanied him. Just kind of, tell us about that. What did you think about Aiden and his folks there?
Yeah, Aiden, his mom, and one of his high school coaches were nice enough to drop by early in the morning at the end of their visit. And yeah, like you mentioned, lengthy has definitely filled out. You still probably think there's a little bit more room to add some more weight, and which you would figure happens because this is the second semester of his junior year of high school. And the thing I kind of gathered in talking to him, but mainly in talking to one of his coaches, is that his first year on varsity was as a sophomore, and what stood out was his curiosity and just willingness to want to absorb everything and just absorb information, whether it was about his position and how he could get better, or just other spots on the defense. And I kind of thought about that and can understand even more when you look at it that way. And even though, of course, you could from just watching the film there, why Mike Elston wanted him and prioritized him. And we heard him talk about it last week, the whole developmental thing, and how Notre Dame has been really good at developing and hitting on 3-star guys, or guys that aren't 5 stars or top 100 recruits or whatever. And nowhere more better do I think that applies than defensive line and defensive end, where Notre Dame's going to have, in all likelihood, 2 defensive ends drafted for the second straight year. And wasn't a problem replacing them in 2020. You figure I won't think it's a problem until it becomes a problem in 2021. But that whole thing has been about development and not missing on guys, and guys just coming into the program and consistently getting better and ascending. And when you look at Aiden, and when you hear about that, a willingness to want to soak up and get better, that just seems like a really strong fit when you have a kid like that mixed in with Mike Elston's track record of development and working with him. So someone who just really wants to get better. And those guys and with what Mike Elston does, I think is a really strong match.
Yeah, so we're going to stick to our script as much as possible, but we do want to address super chats that come in here. So let me pop up. We'll pose this one to you real quick here, Patrick. What happened with Isaiah Pryor? He disappeared. Jose's question here.
Okay, well, first we're missing something. This is a super chat. Hit it.
I forgot about that.
That's the good stuff. Stick it in my veins. Anyway, Isaiah Pryor, yes, moved to Rover, even though he came in at safety. Played a little bit there when Paul Mawala got hurt in the Florida State game. I mean, he was easy to spot on special teams. I think he ended up with the most special teams snaps. It was him or Jack Lamb. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I didn't have it in my notes when we were preparing for this, but I'll get the research team on that in a little bit here.
Love our crack staff.
Anyway, you kind of think that maybe he'll be in the mix here at Rover, whatever that looks like in Marcus Freeman's defense. But yeah, I think when you look at Pryor, one of those guys who you saw Ohio State, top 150 recruit, and thought, oh, big addition, you think starter. But when you look back at the Ohio State numbers, I think it was a thing where it would be depth or nothing guaranteed, just because he had some struggles in coverage and tackling a little bit too. And more so a guy brought in for versatility, organizational depth who can push up and perhaps start. And you see it for 2 years. So we'll see. But at the very least, Notre Dame has a really good special teams player in him.
Yeah, I think so. And one thing to mention, Marcus Freeman, an Ohio State guy. Isaiah Pryor, Ohio State guy. Maybe that plays an impact. I don't know. Probably not. All right, Patrick, what do we got next? I can't even remember.
Yes, let's touch on a couple of offers that actually went out today, Tuesday, February 9th, as we're recording this. Why don't we start in the 2022 class on offense? And that's with tight end Eli Reardon out of West Des Moines, Iowa. A lot of family ties to Notre Dame here, but Mike, I'll let you kind of speak to this, mainly because it's an interesting development in that it wasn't really clear or even thought likely that Notre Dame was going to take a second tight end in 2022.
Yeah, it wasn't for sure. It's funny. I actually wrote about the Notre Dame tight end recruiting situation, the Gold Standard, on Monday, and mentioned 3 prospects outside of class of 2022 commit Jack Nickel that you need to be aware of. Eli was one of them. His dad played at Notre Dame, an offensive tackle and long snapper in the early 2000s. So I believe that it was Scott Reardon Jr. I believe he became a father when he was still a student at Notre Dame. Obviously, it's only 2021, and here's Eli, a junior in high school. And then his grandfather, Scott Sr., was the strength and conditioning coach for Notre Dame in 1988. So that obviously predates us, Patrick. We're a little too young for that. But so you're talking about a guy who, you mentioned Lou Samoji earlier. Lou's about to, if Eli joins Notre Dame's class, Lou is going to have covered 3 members of this family, which is just crazy. So let's pop on his tape here as well, because I think you guys are going to like him. And this is junior tape here. Look at you can see just the length there. A good 6'6", athleticism. It looks good. It's not a perfect comp, but he just kind of reminds me of Thomas Fidone, who I believe ended up as Rivals #1 tight end in the country in this 2021 class. Fidone to me was more of a receiver who is just long, and he's just more of a flex tight end kind of guy. Whereas I think Eli is more of a guy who you can split out in the slot or out wide, but you can also really use him as an inline blocker, an inline tight end. I mean, neither of those guys are playing against the greatest ball, in Iowa, Nebraska, but still, I mean, this guy looks really good. The bloodlines are great, a legacy. Junior film looks really good. We'll watch a couple more plays, but I think we've already had a couple of questions here in the chat as well. KMA Preston, how likely is it that Eli Rardin ends up with the Irish? I think right now it's, I know Iowa is very high on his list in state school, but I mean, it's hard not to like Notre Dame here, and certainly digging to see if it's worth a future cast pick, but you have to like Notre Dame, right, Pat?
Yeah, it's favorable, and just in the sense of the bloodlines, of course. But I would imagine that if you're John McNulty, these offers aren't going to go out for a second tight end in the 22 class unless it was someone that you think has a pretty good shot here,
Yeah.
just because won the numbers with two of them in 2021, identified Jack Nickel a while ago. But yeah, I would imagine that any 22 tight end offer that goes out is probably one that's going to be worth monitoring for
Yeah,
a while.
I wrote about this in the Gold Standard. Like 2022 tight end recruiting is going to be very similar to 2021 in that, like, you had an early commitment from a Georgia prospect before his junior season, and then like, okay, a second tight end's not super necessary, but like, well, Notre Dame uses its tight ends a lot, so if we can, bring in a guy, then let's see if we really like him. And Mitchell Evans last year, a super intriguing prospect with a high upside. I think Eli fits that as well. So it certainly looks like we're going to go, 3 straight years with Notre Dame taking 2 tight ends. I'm not going to make our crack staff look that up, but I can't imagine that many schools are taking that many tight ends in consecutive years.
No, and Notre Dame, of course, would be one that would be more likely to do it just because of the offense and its use of tight ends. Like you're not going to find, give me an air raid team, Mississippi State with Mike Leach taking 3 tight ends in 3 straight years. So I think the pool is going to be smaller just because how many teams are going to have the snaps to go around for him. But yeah, I would imagine it's been a while. That would be something that the crack research team would need a little bit more time on to figure out.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's move on to the second offer that went out on February 9th here. And that is Addison Copeland, the wide receiver out of Buffalo, New York. Notre Dame offered when he was committed to Rutgers, as we're recording this, Mike, at just before 8 p.m. Eastern the same day. He is no longer committed to Rutgers. So what do you read into that? What do you read into the offer and Notre Dame's chances and presence in this recruitment going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of an offer that came out of nowhere. Like, his biggest offer to this point was Rutgers, and so, like, look, guys, this podcast, this live show, this isn't for coaches or high school play, like, or parent. Like, this podcast, this live show, this is for fans, right? So we're trying to inform fans, give our takes to Notre Dame fans, Notre Dame haters out there. So you look at Notre Dame offering Addison Copeland. You look at the Rivals page, right? 3-star with 6 offers and a low 3-star ranking, and he's the number 5 player in New York, which is not known for having strong high school football. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're probably like, why? Right? Why? I just want to say something, right? I'm not going to say that Addison Copeland is is going to be some stud receiver. We'll pop on his film here in a minute so you guys can form your own opinion. But what I'm going to say is, if you're like, you can't be upset if Notre Dame offers a guy too late, but then be upset if they offer a guy too early. Like, this Addison Copeland kid's about to blow up. And then, you're going to be really happy that Notre Dame offered. So when they did, I just feel like I see, Notre Dame fans get upset when Notre Dame offered a guy, like this. But then, if he gets 15 offers in the next week, then what? You're not going to give the coaching staff any credit. So just a little challenge to Notre Dame fans, listening to this. And Yeah, let's see if we can pop up the film here. And these first few clips, I'll show this first one. Then I want to get to, because they're pretty much just all returns, where he's just kind of breezing by people. But um, so New York did not have a football season in the fall of 2020. So we're watching 2019 tape here. But and we had someone ask me this question on the board, Patrick, on blueandgold.com message board. You know, do these guys like send in new film to Notre Dame? Yeah, they absolutely do. Like they're doing workouts, they're sending that to Notre Dame. So the Irish have plenty of film on this guy, and like, look, if Notre Dame really likes this kid, like, would you rather Notre Dame go after someone they have a conviction about and really like, and is a 3-star, or would you rather them go after some 4-star that they don't like? Like, do you want Notre Dame to just recruit based on rankings and not only not their own evaluations? You want, like, me, like if I were picking the rankings, like that's not something that's a craziest thing to say. Like someone like Mike Singer would be doing rankings, because someone like Mike Singer is doing the rankings. They're journalists who are very good at their job and do really an impossible task by ranking these kids. So you'd rather a Rivals analyst, 247 analyst, ESPN analyst pick who your coaches should be going after? That's my biggest thing right now. I'm preaching about here, Patrick.
Really grinds your gears, huh?
Really does. You can tell, huh?
No, I think you're right. And I mean, we heard, I think it was Brian Polian talked about it the most last week, but I think everybody on the staff mentioned it at some point when we heard from them on signing day was, yeah, the rankings are a factor, but they're not the only thing. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a crowd that's never satisfied where you offer a kid when he has few offers. All right, what are you doing? This kid's no good. Or when you offer a kid who has 25 offers, all right, why is it so late? I mean, can't have it both ways. So yeah, I mean, you just kind of figure this is a kid that's on their board and that they liked. So that's that, and they're not concerned with that he has 6 offers or if he had 16 or whatever. But pop quiz,
Okay.
ready for it? And
Yeah.
this is for all the folks in the chat too. So we mentioned that Addison Copeland was committed to Rutgers at one point. Since Brian Kelly took over, Notre Dame has flipped one player previously from Rutgers. Who is it? Drop your answers in the chat. Mike, I would imagine you're not going to know this. I'll be impressed if you do. I'll reveal it a little bit later on. And to quickly bring back an earlier question, the research team has concluded and come back. Isaiah Pryor finished with the second most special team snaps, 3 snaps behind Bo Bauer for the most on the team.
Who's this crack staff?
Yeah,
Who even is this?
I don't know. Whoever it is, though, they got to give him a raise. I don't know. It's really carrying the pod here. But all right, so that's Addison Copeland. I don't know, Mike. What do you think here? I know it's just a few hours since the offer went out, but where Notre Dame kind of stands in the race and kind of how you see that playing out.
Yeah, I think, I was talking to a source tied in with this recruitment about an hour before we started recording, and the feeling is that he just opened it up and he wants to see what's out there, because Notre Dame's not the only school that's interested here, and the Fighting Irish offer is only going to expedite his process and get more offers. So I could see like a quick turnaround and flip if, this is a kid who, grew up a big time Notre Dame fan. His father, grandfather, or uncle, whatever, like played at Notre Dame. Like I could see that happening. I don't think Addison has those kind of ties to Notre Dame. So I think he's going to wait it out a little bit. And talking to a lot of different people, if the dead period gets extended again past April, then I think you're going to see a flurry of commits. I think that's been the case every time that the NCAA has extended the dead period. It's like all these prospects are like, all right, I'm waiting until after this dead period and then take some visits. And then the dead period, it gets extended and they're like, well, I can't take visits. I'm going to pop. So I think, we're not going to see a ton of um, commitments for Notre Dame or really a lot of other schools unless visits open up, and then it's going to be just nuts. Recruiting is going to be crazy if visits open up. But then if it extends, then you're going to see commitments in the near future. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, when you first you see him get an offer and then instantly announce his decommitment, you think, "Oh, flip," because it's right after Notre Dame,
Right.
and maybe that's the case, but later on, and I don't know, I could just as easily look at that and honestly, maybe this is probably the better way to look at it is, "Hey, I just got a big offer. I'm gonna open this up. Let's see what's out there, and we'll go from there." It's February of 2021. Got an entire year if you want it, or at least what is it, 11 months until the first signing day. So just kind of see what's out there, like you said. Even
Yeah.
though the timing of it is, it was very interesting. I'm sure caught a lot of folks' eyes out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree.
So one more name in the 2022 class we want to cover here before we take your questions is a new name, a newer name, I should say, out of Ohio, and that's four-star cornerback Jair Brown. He is committed to Ohio State. So, Mike, obviously one that Marcus Freeman is working on, but I don't know. Where do you see this one going and Notre Dame's chances of prying him away from the Buckeyes?
I think they're actually really good. And it will be Marcus Freeman sticking one to his alma mater. I mean, a lot of what we've been reporting about Marcus Freeman on the recruiting trail is he's coming in, he's kicking ass, and he's taking names. And he doesn't care if you've already eliminated Notre Dame from your recruitment. He doesn't care if you're committed to another school. If he likes you and he thinks you're fit at Notre Dame, he's going after you. And I think even in some circumstances, he's offering kids, and then maybe they're not even a great fit at Notre Dame, but we'll figure that out later. He wants to get that offer and get to know him now. So with Jair Brown, this is a kid who I do not feel is super locked in with Ohio State. I do think that he is, wavering a little bit. Shout out to Tracy Tipton. He says, "Love your guys' show. Hit the thumbs up." Everyone, hit the thumbs up. If you're watching live on YouTube, you're watching back on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. Helps support our channel. Yeah, so I mean, Marcus Freeman's talking to Jair Brown every day. Mike Mickens is certainly involved in this recruitment as well. Patrick, I mean, we always talk about Notre Dame struggling out on the edges, receiver and corner. Notre Dame's been recruiting so well on both sides of the line, but cornerback is an area that I think our crack staff told us last time. You got Isaiah Rutherford rank, what was it, inside the Rivals 150 top
Right.
150 rankings. Of course, he didn't really pan out at Notre Dame and has since transferred. Notre Dame just doesn't really land a lot of these big time cornerbacks. They just don't. So you look at Brown. He's a guy who's from Louisiana and then moved to Ohio. I believe 2020 was just his first season playing in Ohio, and has been impressive. So this would be a huge get for Notre Dame. I mean, I like Notre Dame's DB class in 2021. Patrick, with Chance Tucker is a very good lockdown corner in my opinion. Philip Riley, I'm not sure what he is. I question the pure cover ability. I'm not, he might be a safety. I like Ryan Barnes. I'm not sure if he's a corner or safety. So there's just a lot of these guys that you're just not 100% sure about. I think in this 2022 class for Notre Dame, you want some no-brainers. Like, yeah, Jair Brown, he would fit that in my opinion.
Absolutely. And yeah, as we told you guys, the research team, the last two Rivals 250 corners to sign with Notre Dame, guys who both transferred out. So it's been a little bit, obviously, a big addition. If you're wondering, Notre Dame has not flipped a kid from Ohio State in the Brian Kelly era. And with that, why don't we get back to the pop quiz I threw on you guys earlier? And someone did guess it correctly in the chat. So shouts to you, Riley. It was Pete Makua in the class of 2014, the defensive lineman from Staten Island. So there
There
you
you
go.
go.
Good job, Riley.
Yeah. Riley's big on Instagram. We see Riley on Instagram too. So good job there, Riley. Yeah.
All right.
It-
We
yeah.
give the people what they want. Take some questions.
Yeah, we've got, Johnny 3040 Studios, I think's asked about 6 times about T-Mac here from
South California.
from the Los Angeles area. So we will answer your question here. Um, Realistic chances are slim. They're not. I don't think Notre Dame has a great shot here, Johnny. I think if you're Notre Dame, you got to play the long game. There's some. He I don't think is gonna. I mean, leave far from home, but we'll see. He could visit campus. I don't think he'll ever visit, but we will just have to see. Before we really get into a ton of these questions, guys, I mean, we're going to answer as many as we can, but I got to plug that if you want to guarantee to get your question answered, dropping a super chat and supporting our channel, we'll get your question answered right away. So let's see what else we have. This is a really good question that I think we should address here, Patrick.
Can I dunk a ball? If I had 3 wishes, like, actually, like if I were given 3 wishes, well, before I wish for unlimited wishes, one of the things I would wish for is dunking a ball. I wish, but alas, I'm 5'9", can't do it. But it would be awesome. Like, seriously, I can't imagine fewer better feelings than dunking a ball, even if it's on pickup when you dunk on one of your friends.
I can't right now, Matt. I at one point was able to about sophomore year of high school. I was playing
I
basketball, so I could dunk. I'm 6'3". I was a lot taller and lanky or lankier at that point. I've grown in a different way since I became a sports writer, but so no, I might be able to touch the net right now, but I'm sorry, Matt.
All right, Richard Smith asks, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, 1 receiver. Mike, I'll let you take that how you want to take it.
Yeah, that's a great personnel package. Maybe a split back formation with a couple of tight ends lined up, and I feel like that's like a good Madden 1999 formation. Look, Richard, you gotta give me more to work with here. I mean, I would assume you're talking about 2022 recruiting, but I'm just that's what you asked, so I'm just gonna that's how I'm gonna answer it.
Well, if you're curious, a random fun fact here from the research team: Notre Dame did run 27 plays in 2 running back sets this year.
There you go.
Not so presented without context, whatever you want. There you go. So, Richard, maybe that answers your question. Anyway, let's move on. Irvin Castaneda asks, any developments out of the Los Angeles area kids? Junior, of course, that's the linebacker formerly committed to USC, Arlis Boardingham, and we just touched on McMillan, the wide receiver. What do you think?
Yeah. McMillan's actually from Servite, modern day receiver CJ Williams. So I'll just say CJ Williams. We mentioned earlier with Copeland, the Rutgers decommit. It's like, all right, Notre Dame offers, then he decommits. Well, you got to remember with Junior, Tui Halamaka, the linebacker, recent decommit from USC. Notre Dame offered like a day or two before he decommitted. He didn't instantly flip to Notre Dame. I will drop this though. I'm feeling really good about where Notre Dame is at in that recruitment. So keep an eye on him. I think that answers your question there. Notre Dame is trending in a really good direction there. Arlis Boardingham, listed as a receiver by Rivals. Notre Dame recruiting him as a Russian. Haven't heard too much recently on him. I'll keep digging on him, but I don't think that he is a very top of the board target at this point. And then CJ Williams, I will actually cover in Lucky Charms either Tuesday night or Wednesday night. Can't remember what I had on the schedule, but Notre Dame's actually a dark horse in that recruitment. I still feel like it's probably a long shot, but hey, that's an elite level prospect, CJ Williams. So Yeah, you've got to feel good there. Just kind of being involved there.
Chi-Town Sports asks, anything new on Keith Miles from New Jersey and Keenan Nelson Jr. from Philadelphia? What say you, Mike?
First of all, what's up, Brad? Shout outs to you, my man. Um, yeah, Keith Miles Jr., a guy who Notre Dame's been recruiting over a year. Um, Probably not a defensive end, probably a defensive tackle. He's a big dude. I don't think there's going to be anything imminent with him choosing Notre Dame. So he's someone who the Fighting Irish are absolutely in contact with, but he hasn't visited before, which hasn't stopped guys from committing before. But for him, I don't see anything imminent. That recruitment's still going a little bit slower. Keenan Nelson Jr., I'm glad you asked about him. I feel like Brad, you asked me good about Keenan Nelson Jr., and I do have an update for you. Notre Dame's all over him, and I'll have that update at blueandgold.com in the coming days. But that is a big time receiver from Philly, like you mentioned, and yeah, I think that Notre Dame is very much involved in the mix there. Penn State is Notre Dame's biggest threat right now.
All right. Rick Mahalik asks, are there any plans in the work for Mike Jones Jr. to get to campus? That's, of course, the Clemson graduate transfer linebacker.
We got all these blueandgold.com message board folks. I can tell. I know their names. They're in our YouTube live. So Rick, really appreciate you joining us here. Yeah. So Mike Jones Jr. is the Clemson graduate transfer linebacker. I don't think so. I think that this one might have passed by Notre Dame. Whether that be Notre Dame backing off of him or Jones backing off Notre Dame or a mixture of the two. But as of right now, that I don't think it's going to happen.
Irvin Castaneda asks again, heard all the info out there regarding recruiting limitations in Notre Dame. With that said, how likely is it get back to being a top 5 recruiting class as Brian Kelly promised? Is it a pie in the sky?
Did Kelly promise it? What did he say?
I mean, it's in the
open lead.
The pod. If you're listening to this on pod form,
yeah.
No, it wasn't promised, but I mean, he wanted to do it.
I'm gonna read.
To me, it's either hard given how they're recruiting now, or just with other obstacles or whatever remains to be seen. That's my take on it. I don't think if Notre Dame signs a top 5 class, it'd be a thing that just all the right things come together in a certain class and not like a regular recurrence to me.
I'm going to pop up on the screen here. This is an article at blueandgold.com. So Rivals.com's Mike Farrell had a one-on-one interview with Brian Kelly. If you go to my Twitter page, Rivals_Singer, the pinned tweet here's the link right here, guys. Can't miss it. So you click on that, come down. So Farrell asked Kelly, all right, you've mentioned top 5 class. Can you have a top 5 class? Kelly says, I've been asked a lot about that. I've said this before. Kelly did not, this is my opinion. Kelly didn't tell me this. Kelly went into that and just kind of said it during the Camping World Bowl little media scrum in 2019. He just kind of mentioned, we have things where we want to get into a top 5 class. And once he said that, oh man, everyone took that and just kind of went crazy. And so Kelly explained that top 5 to us. We weren't quoting what Rivals would consider to be top 5. We have our own way of determining top 5. And he says, I think 4 out of the last 5 years we've been top 10 per Rivals 247 ESPN, the way you guys would put it together. But we have another way because we have to factor other things into that. I would love to know what some of those things are. That would be interesting. So he says, continuing on here in this second paragraph, we were talking about how we factored in what we consider top 5 recruiting class and what that means getting quality talent. Guys, we put on the field and show that at the end of the year. Should be mentioned, Mike Elston during his press conference said we can only recruit half of the top 100 in the country. So that he might be kind of grading himself on a curve, maybe. Continue. We were able to take the talent we recruited and finish in the top 5 of the AP poll 2 of the last 3 years. That's what we were really talking about relative to recruiting talent. So, I mean, it's fair. I don't know if everyone's going to agree with it, but look, the Notre Dame, the results are working. Is Notre Dame winning the national championship right now? No, but I mean, they're the talent they have. They're outperforming these recruiting rankings for sure. I mean, you look at like a USC, I even argue Oregon, teams that are routinely finishing better than Notre Dame in the rankings. I mean, in the recruiting rankings, Notre Dame has better football seasons than.
Yeah, I'll say this, like Notre Dame recruiting and following it is a range of hot takes and emotions and all of that. But I think it's pretty undeniable that they have outperformed the class rankings and classes they've signed because of their developmental ability, which at this point is a well-oiled, well-operating machine. That's pretty clear. KMA Preston asks, if Notre Dame takes one quarterback, who would they prefer, Stephen Angeli or Gavin Wimsatt? Those, of course, are the first 2 offers they sent out for 2022 QBs last August.
You know that meme where it's like the guy asks a question and then the other guy like answers it with a completely different. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, so it's like Angeli or Wimsatt, and then the guy's like Tom Brady. Do you know? That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's hard. Describing memes is not easy, but yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
I don't even know. I want to Google this and pop it on the screen. I don't even know how to Google what this meme is. The next time Patrick starts talking for an extended amount of time, I will have some brain space to think and figure out how to Google this. I don't.
People put it in the chat if you know what we're talking about.
I mean, I can picture it. I just don't know how to Google it and show you guys the
I think I can too, but
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Either way,
meme
I get
guy asking question. We're just gonna see.
I think we have to figure this out now.
This is not great. This is not good podcast stuff here. See, I'm not.
That's the research team is on this.
All right, no one cares about this except for me and you. Okay. We're nerds.
Yeah, but let's not go off the rails here.
Not too much. Yeah, we just got to spend 20 minutes talking about Will Shipley. Just kidding. I mean, they offered him in this literally within like 5 minutes of each other. Literally, Tommy Rees talked to Angeli and like hung up the phone and then got on the call with Wimsatt, offered same night back August 17th last fall. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have a great. I'm still focused on this meme thing, and this is a really good question. But I think I think they would probably take the first guy in. But I'll say this: they're still very much evaluating quarterbacks. Like, they are not done, in my opinion, offering quarterbacks. We saw them offer Ty Simpson a couple weeks ago. I believe this will just segment, transition into offering or posting another question here. I can't find it now. I feel like Drew Allar, the quarterback from Ohio. I swore we had a question on that, but I can't find it now in the chat.
Yeah,
but,
we did.
Yeah, so that's another guy who I feel like Notre Dame's close offering. I think MJ Morris from Atlanta was throwing touchdown passes too. Jaden Thomas at Pace Academy last season. That's another guy. There's some really good quarterbacks in Georgia. I forget the kid's name at Collins. Sam Horn at Collins Hill, I believe it is. I mean, there's a ton of really good uncommitted quarterbacks. And I'm also going to throw this nugget out there, guys. Just because a quarterback commits to a different school does not mean Notre Dame's not going to go after him. So, Notre Dame at the end of the day is Notre Dame. No, I don't think they've had amazing quarterbacks under Brian Kelly. But I still think that they can, like Notre Dame's is Notre Dame, and that holds a ton of weight with quarterbacks. It's just a special place, and I think some of these quarterbacks will know that. Let's tackle this question.
All right. Jay asks, I hope the staff can flip receiver Caden Saunders, is who he's talking about, Penn State commit, and can somehow land Brown. I'm not recalling that off the top of my head, Mike. You probably are. So,
Caleb Brown. Caleb Brown.
Caden Saunders and Caleb Brown, of course. Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, yeah. If you're a Notre Dame fan, yeah, you better hope that. I mean, that would be big. I'm expecting 3 receivers for Notre Dame in this class. Saunders is more of a slot guy to me. Caleb Brown is a slot guy to me. If those 2 want in, you take both. But I would want maybe for me, I want a big outside guy like a Noah Thomas, a guy who's kind of like Lorenzo Styles, who you can really put anywhere on the field, and then one of these 2. That's kind of in a perfect world. You get those 3 high-level players, but again, if you get Sanders and Brown, you're not passing that up.
Dark Moon Blade asks, let's say Notre Dame lands Tobias Merriweather, flips Caden Saunders, and lands Copeland. Would they take a 4th receiver if the right guy wanted in, a.k.a. Tyler Morris, Caleb Brown? Kind of what you just addressed, Mike, but it seems like this is asking expand a little bit further on that.
Yeah, I think not angry Mike, but just kind of like short fuse. I don't know, but this is where I can get a little impatient. Nothing against you, Dark Moon Blade. This is a fine question, but like this is me like trying to inform fans, right? Because this is my living. I talk to sources all the time, ask them like these kind of questions, like what would Notre Dame do this? I mean, this is such a domino effect. Like, all right, Tobias Merriweather, boom, that's huge, and then Caden Saunders, and then Copeland. So you're talking about 3 dominoes we're knocking down just to ask a hypothetical on a 4th. Like, if you were to like sit down with Dell Alexander and Tommy Rees and ask them that, I'm sure they would be like, can we just like get the first guy before we even get there? But I'll say this kind of generally speaking, Dark Moon Blade, if you reach your limit, right? Let's say Notre Dame is like, all right, we want 3 in this class, but then they absolutely love Tyler Morris and Caleb Brown. They will go get Tyler Morris and Caleb Brown and just kind of take that extra spot from some other position. Like maybe we don't need a 4th defensive lineman. We'll take that and put it at receiver. But this specific example with, those 3 in particular, like anyone who says they know the answer to that question is either lying or on the Notre Dame staff. And even then on the Notre Dame staff, I don't think they would even know.
No, I know you guys love the hypotheticals and
look, I do too.
Fans, but
I do too. Like, this is my job. You ask me questions, I answer, but also I take it upon myself. Like, I want to make you guys smarter, and understand recruiting. I've been doing this for 10 years almost. This has been pretty much my life. Don't tell my wife, she's in the other room, but like, I'm still learning about this stuff every single day. So just come along this journey with me and we'll learn recruiting together.
All right, well, let's move on to defense here. KMA Preston asks, what is Notre Dame's chances with linebacker Devin Jackson? That's the 4-star linebacker out of Omaha.
Pretty good. I'm told that Marcus Freeman and Devin Jackson have had very good conversations. I did an interview with Jackson recently. He FaceTimed me, and we got to talk on FaceTime and do the interview. And just a really great personality. Like, if you're Marcus Freeman and you're talking to like 30 kids in a week, like, I think it can kind of get monotonous maybe. Like, think about this for some of you that watch The Bachelor. It's like Matt James has got to talk to like 20 women and it's all the same conversations, and then you like get that one girl who just has that really bubbly personality you just like really connect with. That's Devin Jackson. now comparing recruiting to The Bachelor and Devin Jackson to The Bachelor, but like Devin Jackson just like has this infectious personality where like you want to talk to him, and he would be a great guy for the locker room, and also could be a very good football player at the next level. Man, he could be a rush in, he could be an inside linebacker, put him out of rope. Like he's seriously one of these guys who can do a ton of different things. David Knight just called me ma'am. He says Miss Singer. Oh, Miss Singer. Okay. Well, yeah. Don't tell my wife.
Well, I mean, I just can't believe you went to a Bachelor
I
reference on
know.
this podcast.
Look, it's a live show. We're 50 minutes in. Let's take one more question here we have on the screen, unless any late super chats come in here. And then we'll get out of here.
Yes, let's do that. But to bring it back to memes full circle here, when you reference the Bachelor, I popped in the Will Smith question meme where he's looking at it like, come on. All right. Anyway, Irvin Castaneda asks, what happened with David Abiara? Was the kid or the school or a combination? Was his running with the law the straw that broke the camel's back? Abiara signed with Texas, by the way, for those who hadn't followed it. Mike, what's your read on that?
Yeah, I first of all, I think I'm gonna find this meme format and then put it in the comment section of YouTube.
You have
Yeah, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So what happened with Abiara? Look, I mean, his run-in with the law wasn't really that big of a deal. I think it was like a super minor trespassing. But I think straw that broke the camel's back might be a good way to put it. There was several months where he was kind of like flip-flopping between Notre Dame and Oklahoma. Like when he committed to Notre Dame, it took the Oklahoma staff, I'm told, by surprise. They very much thought they were going to get him. Oklahoma never stopped recruiting him, so he's very much like maybe going to flip to Oklahoma. And Texas came in, and maybe I'm going to flip to Texas. SMU came in, the late local P5 group of 5 school came in there. I feel like we always fit in an SMU reference in this
That's right.
show here.
Yeah.
So
you gotta rep the alma mater here.
it's Patrick's alma mater, yeah. So it was just kind of this thing where it's all over the place, and then it seemed like Notre Dame and Abiara were back on the same page, and it's like, all right, Abiara is going to stick, and then literally it seemed like a couple of days later, I believe it was Dallas Fort Worth Star or something like that, Telegram or something.
Fort Worth Star Telegram, yes.
Well, that's close. Yeah, published an article about the news. So I think that was like, all right, like we probably would have liked to find this out, not in a tweet. So that's at least my read on the situation. David Abiara is a really good kid. A week before pandemic stuff hit the fan, I was actually in Dallas and got to spend some time with him at his high school and with his high school coach. Great people. Abiara is a really good kid. I'm really glad that he found that second chance kind of deal with Texas, because they had a new coaching staff came in and recruited him hard. So he's going to be a really good defensive end, whether it's a weak side or a strong side end, offers some really good versatility. And I think the Longhorns got a good get. It just didn't really work out with Notre Dame.
All right, Mike, should we get out of here?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in live. For those of you who are watching, of course, we appreciate you guys watching back on YouTube. And for those who listen to us on the podcast channels, leave us a review, hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube if you're watching there. Hit that thumbs up button too. You can follow us on Twitter. Follow me at Patrick Engel _. Follow Mike at Rivals _Singer. Use a promo code Irish60 if you sign up for blueandgold.com to get 2 months of free access. Mike and I will be back talking to you next week with another episode of Pod Like a Champion. Until then, take care.